This is wrestling's greatest moments.
Hey now, wrestling fans. It's time for another episode of Wrestling's Greatest Moments. Sit back as Wrestling's Greatest Moments looks at Super 70s Tag Teams Volume 3. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single video. This is our third video on Super 70s Tag Teams, teams that enjoyed success during the Me generation. Many tag teams thrived in more than one decade, making it difficult to pin down certain teams as having their prime years in one decade. Keep that in mind with these teams, as several also thrived in the 1960s and/or went on to further success in the 1980s. The Funks, Terry and Dory Funk Jr. Wrestling has seen its share of brother tag teams, but none like the Funks. Dory Funk Jr. and Terry Funk's careers were forged in their father's Texas-based Western States sports territory. From there, they carved out a legacy that still echoes across the wrestling world. They weren't just brothers in blood, they were brothers in battle. The only siblings to hold the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, the Funks proved that they could stand at the very top of the sport as single stars while maintaining tag team excellence. Dory held the gold for 4 straight years, while Terry held it for nearly 2. One night, one would headline an arena as world champion. The next, they'd join forces, elevating tag team wrestling to new heights. From packed houses in North America to roaring crowds in Japan, the Funks brought fire and toughness everywhere they went. The sons of legendary hardcore wrestler and promoter Dory Funk, Terry and Dory Funk Jr. teamed early on in their careers in the 1960s, continuing into the 1970s, where they formed legendary singles and tag careers. The Funks often wrestled in championship wrestling from Florida, clashing with arch rivals Jack and Jerry Briscoe, another famous family in wrestling, one that would score tremendous honors. Jack would hold the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, while Jerry later captured the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship. After Dory dropped the NWA World title to Harley Race, he and Terry wrestled more often in their Western States sports promotion, battling teams including Black Gordman and the Great Goliath, the Blackjacks, Blackjack Lanza and Blackjack Mulligan, and Giant Baba and Jumbo Tsuruta. With their Texas toughness and international reputations, the Funks helped Baba's All Japan establish itself as a major promotion, participating in the promotion's Real World Tag League tournament and battling for its International Tag Team Championship. While the Briscoe brothers were the Funks' arch rivals, the Funks had no shortage of top opponents, including programs against Dusty Rhodes and Andre the Giant in Championship Wrestling from Florida, the Von Erichs, David and Kevin in Western States Wrestling, and the Invaders in Puerto Rico's World Wrestling Council. Dory Jr. and Terry Funk captured several tag team titles in the 70s, including the NWA Florida Tag Team Championship, the NWA International Tag Team Championship, and the World Wrestling Council Tag Team Championship. When the Funks collided with Abdullah the Butcher and the Sheik in All Japan, the result was a violent spectacle that fans still talk about today. Dory Jr. and Terry continued wrestling together into the 1980s and 1990s, but their ability to do so in the 1970s, while also shouldering the weight of a World Singles Championship, makes their 1970s run so special. The Royal Kangaroos. Australian wrestler Jonathan Boyd's tag team career has caused considerable confusion over the years for fans perplexed by his association with the Kangaroos and the Sheepherders. However, we'll cut through the mystery and explain Boyd's role in 2 major Australian tag teams. The fabulous Kangaroos, originally Roy Heffernan and Al Costello, are often credited with popularizing tag team wrestling. But who were the Royal Kangaroos? Were they an offshoot of the fabulous Kangaroos? A blatant rip-off, hardly a rarity in pro wrestling, or something else? According to the book, The Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, the tag teams, the Royal Kangaroos, real-life cousins Norman Frederick Charles and Lord Jonathan Boyd, were big fans of the fabulous Kangaroos and wanted to see how they'd do with their own take on the legendary team. Charles would note, "The Kangaroos were our mentors, and we had to prove that we could do better than them. There was no envy between us and the fabulous Kangaroos. We admired them because they were the first Australian tag team to become world known. But we had to prove that we could be as good, if not greater." According to the book Professional Wrestling in the Pacific Northwest, the Royal Kangaroos debuted in 1971, competing in Don Owen's Pacific Northwest Territory. Boyd and Charles made their mark, defeating the dominant team, the Von Steigers, Carl and Kurt, for the area's Tag Team Championship, the first of several during their initial campaign in the area. The Royal Kangaroos wrestled in other territories, including Jim Crockett Promotions, Ann Gunkel's Georgia-based All South Wrestling Alliance, All Japan Pro Wrestling, Stampede Wrestling, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. The Royal Kangaroos held JCP's NWA Brass Knuckles Tag Team Championship and the ASWA Georgia Tag Team Championship. The Royal Kangaroos returned to the Pacific Northwest in 1975, quickly capturing Tag Team Gold again. One of the Royal Kangaroos' most interesting programs was a bounty angle that defied wrestling tradition. Wrestling fans have seen many angles where heel wrestlers place a bounty on a babyface, promising big bucks for someone to take the wrestler out of action. However, Pacific Northwest promoter Don Owen took a different approach. The highlight of their run was their series of bounty hunter matches. During an interview, they disrespected one of the wrestling sponsors, Tom Peterson. They broke one of his TVs that he had brought for a live TV ad. During the interview, it showed Tom and the other sponsor, Friendly Joe Cahan, with their heads together. Later, the sponsors had their own interview and declared that they were tired of the Kangaroos and they were putting a bounty on them. So they would have teams from all over the country to try and put them out of action. The bounty angle went on for months, with different teams trying in vain to send the Royal Kangaroos packing. Fans could always count on the Royal Kangaroos for their cheating tactics, including using the boomerangs that they brought to the ring as a foreign object, and violence. Boyd and Charles battled many of the 70s best, including Jimmy Snuka and Dutch Savage, Bull Ramos and Jesse Ventura, Rip Hawk and Swede Hansen, Giant Baba and the Destroyer, and Buddy Rose and Jesse Ventura. After another brief Pacific Northwest Tag Team title reign, along with further championship reigns in Georgia, California, and Stampede Wrestling, the Royal Kangaroos parted ways in 1977. Of double dealing and violence were far from over, though. When Butch Miller returned to New Zealand for a spell, Boyd had his last big run as part of the Sheepherders with Crazy Luke Williams. When Butch returned, Boyd became the team's manager. He wrestled until 1987 and settled in Portland. For the record, Jonathan Boyd was a member of the Royal Kangaroos and later the Sheepherders, although the Butch Miller and Luke Williams version is the best known. As for Norman Frederick Charles, he retired from pro wrestling in 1982. The High Flyers. Jumpin' Jim Brunzell and Greg Gagne's High Flyers showed how a tag team could put young stars on display while covering up their rough edges. Brunzell and Gagne became friends while attending the University of Minnesota, with Gagne inviting the future Jumping Jim to try out at his famous Wrestling Fathers training camp. During a 2013 interview with Pat LaPrade, Brunzell recalled how a possible journey to the Canadian Football League got sidetracked. When I got back from Washington, I was 30 credits away from getting my degree, so I went back to college. That's where and when Greg Gagne brought me to his dad's wrestling school. So playing for Winnipeg in the CFL was never an option, as I never got back into football. Brunzell, along with future greats Ric Flair, Ken Patera, the Iron Sheik, and Bob Bruggers, graduated from Vern's Intense Wrestling School. Brunzell debuted in the AWA in 1972, while Gagne debuted the next year. According to Gagne, he suggested that the two pair up. I called him one day and said, "You know what? Why don't we hook up? We've been wrestling about 3 years. Let's try it." While Gagne's timetable seems a bit off, records indicate their first tag match occurred in 1974. They slowly worked their way up the AWA's tag team ladder, wowing the fans with their fast-paced style. Veteran wrestler Nick Bockwinkel praised the High Flyers' work and work ethic. They were the all-American team. One was the son of the perennial Vern Gagne. The other was Flying Jim Brunzell, who could drop-kick you from 8 feet in the air. They were both good little workers, and they worked really hard. The High Flyers' youth, speed, and high-flying matches made them a perfect foil for the promotion's villainous veterans, including the Valiant brothers, Jimmy and Johnny, AWA World Tag Team Champions Ray Stevens and Nick Bockwinkel, Baron Von Raschke and Mad Dog Vachon, and later Tag Team Champs Blackjack Lanza and Bobby Duncum. By 1977, Brunzell and Gagne were frequent challengers for the AWA World Tag Team Championship, and Lucky Sevens prevailed as they bested Lanza and Duncum for the titles on July 7, 1977. The High Flyers were now on the defensive, with tag teams seemingly coming out of the woodwork to challenge the young teams. Veteran teams, including the Valiant brothers, Jimmy and Johnny, Bobby Duncum and Blackjack Lanza, the Blonde Bombers, Ray Stevens and Pat Patterson, as well as the interesting team of Bob Orton Jr. and Nick Bockwinkel, found that the champions were no longer rookies. The High Flyers kept the titles around their waists for an impressive 443 days, only dropping the belts after Brunzell was injured in a charity softball game. The High Flyers would eventually reform, with the team defeating the East-West Connection, Jesse the Body Ventura, and Adrian Adonis on June 14, 1981, holding the belts an astonishing 742 days. In 2016, the High Flyers discussed their career as a tag team during a special event for the Cauliflower Alley Club, with Jumping Jim recalling, "We had unbelievable talent to work with. It was hard to have a bad match." Greg Gagne looked back at his career with Brunzell, noting, "Jim was just a phenomenal partner for me. We just really jibed." Brunzell eventually left the AWA, joining the WWF, where he teamed with B. Brian Blair as the Killer Bees. Now, while the Killer Bees team introduced him to a new audience, Brunzell preferred his time in the AWA. The AWA was just a great place to wrestle. I was spoiled not working every day, with good money and time to see my family. It was my favorite promotion. It was my home. The Interns. The medical field has produced its fair share of wrestling heels, including Dr. Bill Miller, Dr. Wagner, the Medics, and the Interns. There have been several versions of the Interns, but in this case, we'll be covering the 1970s version that evolved from the Medics. According to the article, Dr. Ken Ramey and the Medics, the team evolved, capitalizing on the presence of their manager. What set this new Medics team apart from the predecessor was their legendary manager, Dr. Ken Ramey. A former disc jockey and referee, Ramey was paired with Starr and Garrett in Georgia, and he became a fixture with the team. After a successful run in Florida, the Medics headed to Nashville, where they were redubbed the Interns. The Masked Men and their manager were a top draw in Tennessee. According to wrestling historian, amongst other talents, Jim Cornette, the Interns played a major role in Jerry Jarrett's forays into promoting Louisville, Evansville, and Memphis. The Interns were the first major heel team that Jerry Jarrett booked in Louisville in 1970 when he opened up Louisville, and they had a big run in Memphis and that territory. And Jerry Jarrett will credit him today and the Interns as being the heel tag team that put Louisville and Evansville wrestling and somewhat Memphis wrestling on the map. Cornette, who would go on to have an epic run as a manager and promoter, recalls how, "You know, for people of my age, that's the heel tag team and the heel manager that they remember as being in the main events. And I'm going to say that the Interns were the main event for the first 6 months that Jerry Jarrett ran Louisville, when they started selling out of the Louisville Gardens instantly off television because of the heat that Ken Ramey got and the work that the Interns did." According to Cornette, Dr. Ken Ramey pioneered the use of a manager using ether-soaked rags to KO babyface opponents, helping the Interns win matches and championships. The Interns and Ramey, who usually limited himself to managing the team, occasionally added to opponents' humiliation by painting them while they dozed. Consequently, the Interns drew the kind of heat that led to dangerous situations with enraged fans. Intern Jim Starr remembers how the team's antics incensed fans and brought in police. "We had the sheriff's department, the provost marshals for the guys in the service, and the city police all come down there." Promoter Nick Goulas said, "Don't worry, give them all to me," and he did. The Interns' ability to incite fans to violence wasn't limited to the South. The team also starred in San Francisco, where police officers showed Ramey bullets that they'd absconded from the guns of paying customers. The Interns would change members, with the original Interns comprised of Jim Starr and Bill Garrett. When Garrett, frustrated with measly payoffs in Goulas' promotion, surprise, surprise, left, the team brought in Tom Andrews. Andrews had been working as The Claw alongside Ox Baker and was ready for a change. The Interns battled assorted teams, including Len Rossi and Bearcat Wright, Jerry Jarrett and Tojo Yamamoto, Eddie Marlin and Tommy Gilbert, Jerry and Ted Oates, Bob Geigel and Pat O'Connor, and Dory Funk Jr. and Ricky Romero. The Interns held gold in NWA Mid-America, including its version of the NWA World Tag Team Championship and the NWA Mid-America Tag Team Championship. The Interns also held the NWA Western States Tag Team Championship in NWA Western States Sports and the NWA World Tag Team Championship in Central States Wrestling. The Interns continued wrestling until 1978, when the Bicentennial Kings, Phil Hickerson and Dennis Condrey, unmasked Starr. Blackjack Lanza and Bobby Duncum. The combo of Blackjack Lanza and Bad Boy Bobby Duncum, aka Bobby Duncum Sr., was another championship-winning team for manager Bobby the Brain Heenan in the AWA. AWA fans who had seen Heenan's team of Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens dominate the AWA World Tag Team Championship for years wondered if anyone could follow in Bockwinkel and Stevens' footsteps. Lanza and Duncum would prove worthy successors. Duncum earned instant notoriety when he helped Heenan's charge Nick Bockwinkel defeat Vern Gagne for the AWA World Championship. Heenan then paired Duncum with Blackjack Lanza, forming a team arguably as impressive as the Blackjack's duo, Blackjack Lanza and Blackjack Mulligan, that had terrorized various territories in the early 1970s. Lanza and Duncum defeated Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher on July 23, 1976. The champions fought off challenges from the former champions and had heated rivalries with the High Flyers, jumping Jim Brunzell and Greg Gagne, and Larry Hennig and Ray Stevens. Lanza and Duncum also wrestled in Sam Muchnick's NWA St. Louis Wrestling Club, defending the tag team titles against tough opponents, including Pat O'Connor and Rocky Johnson, Bob Backlund and Jim Brunzell, and their AWA rivals, the High Flyers. With Bobby Heenan guiding them, and lending a helping hand as needed, the Lanza Duncum team held onto the titles for nearly a year before dropping them to the High Flyers. Lanza and Duncum chased the High Flyers for the titles but couldn't repeat their success, and the team went its separate ways. Do you remember these Super 70s tag teams? And if so, what do you think of them? Share your thoughts in the comment section, and let us know if there are any videos you'd like Wrestling's Greatest Moments to cover. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel, follow us on X and Instagram, and spread the good news about Wrestling's Greatest Moments, the channel that celebrates the squared circle.